Our next speaker is Dr. Paras Mehta. She's going to be talking on DSEC, donor preparation and insertion technique. Dr. Paras is one of the leading cornea surgeons from Gujarat and is a medical director of Sameep Eye Hospital and Cornea Center with her expertise in her field, a high volume work with special interest in corneal lamellar surgeries, ocular surface, and a lot more. On to you, Dr. Paras.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you see?
Yeah. Yeah. Are you able to see my screen?
Yeah.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. And at the outset, I would like to thank Team ARC and especially Dr. Chitra for giving me this opportunity to be part of this PG teaching program.
It is cut from the side.
Sure. Shall I?
And it has to be slideshow, and there's some gray. I don't know. I see a gray patch.
Is this all right? Is this all right now?
No. There's a gray
It's
patch.
not all right.
It is not.
Maybe go to the next slide. Maybe that strip will not be there in the next slide because I saw your videos initially.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's in the.
Do you still see the same?
No, it's okay.
Ma'am, can you stop share for a minute?
Stop share and then start sharing again.
Okay.
Can you just do the optimize once if it solves? Otherwise, just come back and just click on the screen share once and optimize the second box. Just check once.
Optimize. Okay. Yeah.
Now do it, please.
Yes.
Oh, you share your screen?
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. Oh, sorry, can I go to the first slide?
अभी भी थोड़ा सा ऊपर में ग्रे लाइन है.
No, let it be.
Shall I do it once more?
No.
No. Okay.
I think it's there.
Now I'm not able to advance my slides, it seems.
Just click on the screen. You should be able to.
Yes. Yeah. So good evening, everyone. And at the outset, I would like to thank Team ARC and Dr. Chitra for giving me this opportunity. I will be talking to you on the subject DSEC donor preparation and insertion techniques. We all know that penetrating keratoplasty has been there for more than a century, and the limitations which were very well highlighted by previous speakers like wound adhesion, suture-related problems, high immunogenic load, astigmatism, and delayed visual recovery, etc., led to innovations towards component keratoplasty or lamellar corneal surgical procedures. As you can see here, these procedures, the posterior lamellar procedures, are very well accepted now, or people transition from full thickness corneal transplants to lamellar procedures just because it is revolutionary. One can work through a closed chamber and without having, any weakness of the sustained trauma, but also to the surface with many other advantages of that. So if we look at the history, in 1998, Dutch ophthalmologist Dr. Mellis described sutureless posterior lamellar keratoplasty. From there on, in 2001, Dr. Terry and Osley described modified technique, and they called it as deep lamellar endothelial keratoplasty, wherein even the posterior part of the recipient's stroma was also to be removed while implanting a donor lenticule, which gradually transitioned based on the experience to DSEC, that is Descemet's stripping endothelial keratoplasty, or we can call it as DSAEK, where it is the donor lenticule is prepared on an automated on the trifines and with a microkeratome on automated mechanism. So it is known as Descemet's stripping automated endothelial keratoplasty. And then on, the search went on, and we have moved on even to DMEC. So DSEC, Descemet's stripping endothelial keratoplasty, essentially replaces diseased endothelial tissue with a thin donor graft comprising of posterior corneal stroma and Descemet's membrane endothelial complex, as you can see here. The advantages are these patients would have very fast visual recovery, unlike penetrating keratoplasty or full thickness grafts. The topography of the cornea is minimally changed or hardly changed at all. There are no suture-related problems. It is much more anatomical, And chances of immune rejection are less as compared to full thickness penetrating keratoplasty, as epithelium and this, majority of the stroma is not implanted. But it has certain downsides, like it has a learning curve. The initial endothelial cell loss, which was reported, was much higher, but with better understanding of and the development of newer techniques, probably we have come across that limitation as well. Even donor disc dislocation was reported in the initial phases a little higher, but that has also been stabilized with a better understanding of the scientific principles. The indications could be post-cataract surgery corneal edema, which could be aphakic bullous keratopathy or pseudophakic bullous keratopathy, advanced Fuchs endothelial keratopathy, failed previous grafts mainly due to endothelial rejection, iridocorneal endothelial syndrome with corneal endothelial failure, CHED or congenital hereditary endothelial dystrophy, posterior polymorphous endothelial dystrophy, any other causes where endothelial failure has led to corneal edema, and occasionally failed previous DSECs. These are just clinical pictures of corneal edema post-cataract surgery. Sometimes the damage to the endothelium is much more, or sometimes because of the TARS, these patients would develop corneal edema. As you can see here, these are non-recoverable corneal edema and which requires a surgical intervention. Sometimes some of these patients would be highly symptomatic, and many a times that leads to quite, inflamed ocular surface. Patients of Fuchs endothelial corneal dystrophy with central corneal edema would be ideal candidates for DSEC. Coming to DSEC disc or donor preparation, the donor preparation can be done two ways: manual preparation as well as automated with the help of microkeratomes, which is known as DSAK, which I mentioned earlier. There are various types of artificial anterior chambers available and which are being used by surgeons depending on their choice for manual preparation. And now with recent advances, most of the eye banks do provide us pre-cut tissue prepared at the eye bank by a trained technician. So the life has become much more easier. The instrumentation for donor preparation could be artificial anterior chamber to mount a corneoscleral button, various lamellar surgical dissectors, punched refines to cut the desired size button for DSEC or DSAK. The artificial anterior chambers could be disposable, which are, various types of chambers are available, like Baron artificial anterior chamber, cornet with steel base or for better stability, or sometimes reusable steel artificial anterior chamber, or the ones which can be used with automated microkeratome like Moria, etc. These are the clinical, schematics of artificial. This is very commonly used artificial anterior chamber, like which is developed by Catena, which is disposable. Essentially, any artificial chamber would have three components. The bottom piece, which is, if you can see my the arrow, the cursor, this is a piece on which the cornea gets mounted, the corneoscleral button gets mounted, which is a pedestal for the corneal tissue. Then this is a second component, which is known as a tissue retainer component, and the third component, which is a locking ring, as it is seen here. Component 1, component 2 to retain the tissue in its position, and then we have to lock this ring so that the tissue doesn't move and the chamber remains tight. So donor cornea with a scleral rim of 14 to 16 millimeter diameter should be sufficient enough for most of the artificial anterior chambers. These are different examples of different chambers. Like this has a steel base, heavier base for better stability. At times you can have non-metallic chambers available, which are also disposable, or you can ETO and use it. Particularly this chamber is very useful for a corneoscleral button where there is a very small scleral rim available. Sometimes depending on the procedural aspects of individual eye banks, we may have very small scleral rim available. In these two pictures demonstrate the steel artificial anterior chamber wherein a cornea is mounted in a similar fashion, and then there is a top piece which allows the microkeratome to be fitted on it, and we can make a pass with a microkeratome, 350 or 300 micron microkeratome, and the cornea can be sliced. This video just demonstrates a manual donor preparation. The cornea is mounted on a disposable artificial anterior chamber. A small cut is made at the limbus, and then gradually the lamellar pocket is dissected with the initial cut is done with a crescent blade and then with blunt dissectors, straight, slightly curved, and then fully curved dissector, depending on which area you are working with. And it is important to dissect the cornea right up to the limbus so that you have a maximum size of the donor available. And it's essential that you mark the area of your incision so that you don't lose the site. You don't end up into punching the button while, missing this particular area. Once the donor is prepared, a desired size of dissect donor tissue is cut on a punched refine. As you can see here in a punched refine. Now that area is showing an area of an arcus, so you can avoid an arcus. There are 4 dots or holes. So based on that, you can center your tissue very well. And depending on the size which you require for the donor dissect lenticle, you can use 7.5, 8, 8.5 or 9 millimeter punch and cut the cornea. And you can even recheck from the upper part that whether it is centered well or not. Once you have done that, it is essential that you lift the posterior disc with the help of forceps, one half and the other half, to make sure that you have kind of, separated it completely. This is a second video of a similar mechanism. Here we are using an 8 millimeter punch. You can hear the snap when you are pressing with the 2 fingers. And then you can lift the punch and the cornea would be cut very well centered, and you can have a thin, graft available to you. It's essential that you rotate the graft or the, block 180 degree and check whether the cornea is punched from all the sides to avoid any, surprises later on. Just to complete these, though, I'm talking on donor preparation and the insertion techniques. Once you have done this, it's important to prepare the recipient. You dissect the main wound, put 2 side port incisions, decide the size of the donor which you want to insert. So based on that, you have to mark the outside cornea with the help of a marker, and then use a Reversinski or any blunt like instrument which is used for scoring the Descemet's membrane. You score the Descemet's membrane in 2 halves, like 2 semicircles, to make sure that you have scored it to 360 degree, and then gently lift the Descemet's with the help of the same scorer and bring it towards the main wound. Enlarge the wound with your microkeratomes and remove the Descemet's membrane with fine forceps, and make sure that you put the Descemet's membrane on top of the cornea and check the sizing of the removed DM to make sure that you have done a good removal of the DM or desired removal of the DM, and then remove the remaining viscoelastics from the anterior chamber. Coming to the donor graft insertion techniques, after enlarging the wound to 4.5 to 5 millimeter, the surgeons use one of a variety of techniques to insert the graft into the anterior chamber, often employing specialized instruments to help protect the endothelium. Essentially, there are 2 types of techniques being used for DSEC, donor graft insertion. One is push technique and the other is a pull-through technique. An ongoing evolution of the devices and techniques used for Descemet's stripping endothelial keratoplasty led to various techniques. In addition to performing the surgery with forceps, more and more surgeons are preferring to use glides and injectors to lower the endothelial cell loss and aim for better outcomes. So initially, people use various techniques like insertion with Utrata forceps, where the donor disc is folded into a taco fold in the proportion of 60 and 40. 60 is the top side and the 40 is the bottom side, and a thin layer of cohesive viscoelastic is put in between to prevent endothelial cell loss, and the taco is held with the help of forceps, various types of forceps, and it is inserted into the anterior chamber from the main wound. One can use a variety of endoglides, use of endoserters, and some surgeons use suture pull-through technique, and even recently, people have switched over to push technique with a 27 gauge or 30 gauge needle. The surgeons who use forceps commonly take the donor tissue that is on a disc, fold it into shape of a taco, 40 to 60, which I said earlier, for the so-called taco fold, and then use the forceps to insert the tissue into an opening into the anterior chamber. Here you have to grab the tissue. Sorry, I don't have a video of a taco fold technique because I lost some of those videos. Initially, I used to use that and gradually transition to the other techniques. So opening into the anterior chamber. Once the tissue is in the eye, the taco unfolds. Various types of forceps are used, namely Utrata, Guzzi, or Olga, sometimes Kelman and McPherson forceps. However, forceps and taco-fold techniques seem to cause a higher rate of endothelial cell loss, reaching as high as 30% to 35% at 6 months, and that is why people moved on to use other techniques. This is how essentially a taco, the lenticule is converted into a taco. The top fold is 60% and the lower fold is 40%, so that it is easier to unfold this tissue, and one can insert a bubble underneath between the two folds, and the taco would unfold. So as you can see here in the picture on your right hand side. So concerns over minimizing the endothelial
conclude, Dr.
Yeah, I just could have just a couple of slides only. I can move on to conclusion. There is one small video, insertion with abuse in glide, wherein this is a courtesy Dr. Vikas Mittal. DSEC button is it is a pull through technique. It is inserted into the glide and it is positioned into the mouth of the glide, and then with the other side of incision, a forceps is used to pull the button into the anterior chamber. There are various other types of glides, like TAN endoglide is available, which essentially uses very minimal size of incision. As you can see here, the lenticule is folded and we are minimizing the endothelial damage. One can also use endocertus. Just two more videos and then there is probably a concluding slide. Yeah, 30 seconds videos, Dr. Chitra. This is a push technique wherein donor lenticule is put on a cohesive viscoelastic and it is pushed through the main wound with the help of 26 gauge or 30 gauge bent needle, and then the wound is sutured and an air is injected to get the donor lenticule into the center of the SC. Sometimes the donor lenticule is not very well centered. You need to use another instrument to center it well. At times, the surgeon would modify this technique to one can use a sheath slide to support that lenticule, but one can use the same tissue, the posterior part, the anterior part of the tissue, and fold, put a viscoelastic onto that and put the lenticule on that, and use both the things together and slide the top lenticule into the anterior chamber easily, so that there is a minimal tissue damage. Smaller the incision is better, the air management, and lesser the astigmatism. Suture pull-through works better in aphakic or vitrectomized eyes. These are the results post-operatively. As you can see here, sometimes the long-standing corneal edema may take a little longer time to clear up. One can resort to non-desmet stripping DSEC, that is NDSEC, post-RK or sometimes post-keratoplasty, failed grafts. To summarize, DSEC or DSAK allowed a transition from full thickness procedures to laminar endothelial keratoplasty with very good long-term outcomes. The learning curve can be shortened by wet lab trainings. It enjoys lower rejection rate as against full thickness grafts. Unaltered topography enables quicker and better visual recovery for these patients and avoids suture-related problems. And pre-cut tissues have helped shorten the surgical time, and you can have wonderful visual outcomes, and patient and surgeon both feel happy at the end of long-term outcome. Thank you for the kind attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Paras. That was a very thorough talk. Dr. Rajesh, could you just take one question and we'll go on to our next speaker?
Yeah, that's a very nice comprehensive presentation. The only question that I have for the benefit of the postgraduates is there any tips of preventing post-operative dislocation of the donor lenticule, which we know is one of the most common complications of DSEC surgery? And in terms of donor selection, what is the ideal thickness of the donor lenticule?
if the lenticule is thicker, the chances of dislocation is much higher. So if it is thinner, it is better, and one can use a good amount of, air tamponade initially. Like you can spend a little more time to support the lenticule with an air, and then decompress the air to make it, 80%, so that it is almost as size of the donor lenticule, so that you know that you are not really going to have high post-operative pressures or pupillary block, and you can avoid, having dislocations of these lenticules. Especially for vitrectomized eyes, it is important to use maybe probably a suture or suture pull-through technique, and maybe to kind of, use that suture to support that lenticule to prevent dislocations.
What
It
about
is
the
a
role of using non-expansile mixture of SF6?
Some surgeons do use it, but most of the time one can do away with air, but one can definitely use, non-expansile gases also for internal tamponade.
If there's a small peripheral separation, would you observe it or would you do a rebubble?
I would like to observe it, and sometimes if it is, if it is like, if you don't want to wait, and then maybe probably you can just put in a small air bubble and it will take care.